Hola, buenos días. That's my Spanish right there. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí. Muchas gracias a EEC para invitarme. And this is my first time back in Madrid since 1995. And I hope to be back more often. So I'm from Polyvore, and Polyvore is a new way to discover and shop for things you love. And I think what's really exciting about Polyvore and what I'm going to really focus on today is how brands and retailers can use community to build content to inspire consumers to buy their products, and how that framework results in exposing your products to a lot more new customers and increasing the reach of your brand. I think to some extent, many companies in the internet sector are trying to solve this problem. How do you bring together content, community, and commerce to make something magical happen in the middle? And from a content standpoint, there are publishers. So in the US, we have the traditional magazine publishers that have gone online. They're trying to solve this problem by building stores on their websites. You have community-based sites, social networks, trying to build platforms for people to transact. And then you have retailers trying to add community and content to their site. I don't think anybody has really solved it yet, and I certainly don't think Polyvore has really solved it yet. But I think that this is kind of where the market's going, and so we all need to think about this space and try and develop some best practices for how to be successful. And that's really what I'm going to focus on today. I'm not really going to talk too much about Polyvore, more about how brands and retailers can use community to create content and drive inspiration to purchase. So I think it really boils down to three things. Number one, commerce requires inspiration. If you want someone to buy your product, you need to put it in a context that inspires them, that makes it feel relevant to something that they do every day. And this is not unique to what Polyvore does or what you see online. This is how television advertising works. You put a product into some content, into a story, and that becomes relevant to a consumer. Number two, inspiration requires content. So you absolutely need content in order to tell that story and to put that product into context. And number three, content requires community. And this is especially important if you are a company that has a lot of products, such as a retailer or a brand, multi-product brand, because community, by building content, makes it a much more efficient process for you than trying to do it all yourself. So let's dig into each of these one by one. The first era of commerce online was much more about information than it was about inspiration. And so you have sites like Amazon where the shopping experience is driven by searching for a product that you already want. So I'm looking for Bluetooth speakers. I search on Amazon. I'm easily able to compare Bluetooth speakers from different vendors based on things like price, availability, and ratings and reviews from other people who've also bought the product. But when you look at a category like fashion or home decor or children's toys, it's much more about inspiration. So you need to take a product like the sweater and you need to tell a story. And what you see here on the screen are stories that consumers are telling on Polyvore, but they could also be TV commercials where somebody is wrapped up in an outfit, in a scarf and a coat, and wearing that sweater, and that tells a story about how it makes you feel during the winter. So commerce really requires inspiration. Inspiration requires content. If you think about most retailers, the way they present their products to their consumers, it's kind of boring. Just put a product on the page, maybe show a few different shots of that product, a few different angles. If you're really advanced, you might show some ratings of that product. Other people who have bought it are happy with it. And maybe you show that it's available in a few other colors. But what that product really needs is it needs to be put into context. So it needs to be put into an environment where consumers can see how it relates to them. So in this case, putting this dress into an outfit along with a pair of shoes, a handbag, and some earrings immediately tells a different story and inspires someone that maybe already owns a handbag that looks like that or a pair of shoes that look like that, hey, this dress might go really well. And then the key thing once you create this content is you have to put the content where your consumers are, or where your target consumers are. They're not on your website. They're on platforms like Polyvore. They're on platforms like Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. And so you need to take your content, you need to distribute it out to what we call points of inspiration, where people are spending time looking for things that are new and then kind of in a mode of discovery. And then to scale this, you need community, because while you may be able to create one outfit or one point of view around your product, a community can create multiple points of view. And if you just think of this particular use case here, 6 different people create 6 different points of view around this product. It just increased, you just 6x'd the likelihood that someone is going to be inspired to buy your product. So community is a multiplier on inspiration. Let me just show you some real numbers on how this works on Polyvore. So the same brand we've been looking at here, they don't just have one product. They have 3,000 products. So to create 3,000 pieces of content themselves is impossible. They can't afford it. They can't afford enough people to do it themselves. So they came to Polyvore, they went to Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, and everywhere to build community, to create content. And what happened on Polyvore is that these 3,000 products in 1 month didn't result in one piece of content, but resulted in 90,000 pieces of content. On Polyvore, we call these sets. A set is just a collage of products that you can buy, created by a community. And then the same community that created these sets didn't just share one set 3 times to 3 different social networks. They shared them 45,000 times to Pinterest, to Tumblr, to Twitter, to Facebook, to Skyrock in France, to networks all over the world. And what this means for the brand is that they get 80% new customers from this tactic, right? So it's driving them a lot of customers, a lot of sales. And when they actually look through the data, 80% of those people are new customers. And they're always surprised when this happens, and we always tell them, you shouldn't be surprised because you just put your product in front of a ton of new people. And when you do that, and you do it in a way that tells a story and puts that product in context and inspires those people to buy your product, it's not surprising you're going to reach new people. And so this is a model that works really well. I don't think it just works in fashion. I think it can work in home decor. I think it can work in any category that is lifestyle-oriented, where you're not searching for a product that you already know you want. It's more about filling a desire. So let me tell you a little bit about Polyvore. Our company was founded about 6 years ago in Silicon Valley by 3 guys who are engineers at Yahoo. So not exactly the gene pool for a fashion company. They tooled away, they built a very basic product. And then about a year into it, our current CEO, Jess Lee, was a product manager at Google. She discovered Polyvore, she started to use it, and she found all these things wrong with it because she said, you're not solving the problems of the consumer. And so she wrote the founders in kind of an epic email of about 50 things that were wrong with the product. And the founders, being good entrepreneurs, said, why don't you come and meet us and tell us more about your feedback? And so she went and had coffee with the founders, and they said, why don't you just come and work for us and help us build a great product? So that was how Polyvore was born, and took a long time to build a community. Took probably 3 or 4 years to really get the community going. And I think this is the key thing to remember. If you're trying to build community, you have to have a very long-term point of view. You have to invest in it. I think there was a presentation earlier on about from the guy from Accenture saying, companies that keep investing are the ones that ultimately succeed. And Polyvore really took that same approach, kept investing, kept learning, listening to customers, giving them what they want. And eventually the company took off about 2 years ago. And where it is today is that we have a global community of 20 million users that discover products. And so they discover products on Polyvore, and they also discover products outside of Polyvore. So they'll go to thousands of retailers around the world, clip products, bring them into Polyvore, and create sets around them. Put those products in context. So essentially creating free content for all of those retailers. And so what that results in today is that a community that creates 4 million of these sets every month. So it's 4 million pieces of highly shoppable content that puts products in context and inspires consumers to want to buy those products. And what that ends up driving is a lot of sales. And so Polyvore is a profitable company, cash flow positive, EBITDA positive. We've been profitable for a while, 80 people. Kind of runs counter to a lot of companies in Silicon Valley, which tend to be unprofitable at the expense of growth. And I think that's what's very exciting about the company. Saying the reason I joined the company about a year ago was I'd been looking at a lot of social-based sites. None of them made any money or were profitable, and because none of them were driving sales. And so I found this model fascinating, and is a big reason for joining the company. So I want to leave you with 3 things that you can do today, because I think it's important to be able to walk away from here with something actionable. If you sell a product that people don't know about, you need to introduce that product, and you need to inspire your target consumer to buy that product. The only way to do that is to create content. Create content online, create content offline, wherever you think it makes sense, wherever you think you're going to reach your target consumers. You want to create a content that puts your product in a context that inspires in a way that's relevant to what your consumers are already doing. So in Polyvore's case, it's fashion, so people already own clothes, so we're just putting products in context of the clothes they already own. Number 2, you have to distribute that content. Nobody's going to come to you because they haven't heard of you. And so going to where your consumers are, the great thing about the internet is that consumers spend time around content, and they spend time around social media. And while social media may not be a great place to advertise per se, it is a great place to distribute content because that's what people want in social media. And if you put your products in a context through content, it's going to expose them to discovery. We call it points of inspiration. And then the third thing is to build community. And the way you build community is you start by putting your content where your target consumer is, and you see how they respond. And you learn from that, and you find your advocates. You find the people that really take to your product, and you try and build community around them. Because if you build community, the community will start creating the content for you. And then they'll start distributing the content for you. And that will expand the community and make it keep growing it. And just like Polyvore growing from 1 user to 20 million users, so can your brand, or so can your retail business. So with that, I'd love to take some questions. Thanks.
¿Tenéis alguna cuestión para el modelo de Polyvore? Por aquí. ¿Alguien? Sí, por aquí.
Good morning. Do you think this is a future of the press we know for women, like a new font of inspiration, given that we are in a very in a sector which is in crisis, no?
I think the question is, do people want to be inspired in a crisis? I think people always want to be inspired. If the economy is doing great, people want it to do better. If the economy is not doing great, people want to do it better. Nobody ever wants the economy to do worse. And so I think that inspiration, making people feel better, is a good thing, regardless of whether it drives commerce or not. And I do think it's the future, and certainly the future for commerce in regards to products that need to be discovered, which fashion is a great example of that.
Hi. How do you drive sales? What is the exact process of you driving sales? Do you get the lead from your users and you forward that to the brands, or how's the process, and how do you monetize that?
Yeah, so we monetize through what's called native advertising, which is similar to how Twitter monetizes or Facebook, where the idea that an ad and a piece of content look exactly the same, and one really just amplifies the other. And so because Polyvore is the content is all products, it makes sense for those products to be essentially ads. And so we have 3 different pricing models: CPA, CPC, CPM. I don't know if you use the same words here, but CPM is like you pay by impressions. CPC, you pay for clicks. CPA, you pay for the actual sale. And so we work with about 600 brands and retailers across those 3 different models. And the one thing in common is they're all measuring ROI, return on investment. So if they spend $1, they wanted to see $7 in sales. And I think it's really good to have clients like that because they force you to innovate back.
¿Alguna pregunta más? And
yeah. Probably Polyvore has a business in the future because it's more important the data that you are having, and instead of paying with CPC or CPM, all the data that you are producing is so valuable. Are you selling all this data? Are you thinking in that the value of your customer or the data that produced is better than the CPC or the CPM model?
Yeah, so when we think about data, we think about using it to create a personalized experience for consumers. And so that's the kind of the real use of the data. At Polyvore, we think about building the taste graph. So if you think about Facebook was a social graph, Twitter was an interest graph, we think about Polyvore as the taste graph because we think we have very unique data that describes taste. We have 4 million sets every month of products put together. And so there's nowhere else really on the web where you get information on how products go together. And then we also see which products people buy and which sets people share, and which products and sets people like. And so we feel that all of that data together helps us build up sort of a taste profile of users. And so when we think about data, we don't really think about selling it as a service like Twitter sells its data. We think about using it to personalize experience because that will drive more sales for brands and retailers.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnie. Thanks for coming again. Thank you.
Content in order to tell that story and to put that product into context. And number 3, content requires community. And this is especially important if you are a company that has a lot of products, such as a retailer or a brand, multi-product brand. Because community, by building content, makes it a much more efficient process for you than trying to do it all yourself. So let's dig into each of these one by one. The first era of commerce online was much more about information than it was about inspiration. And so you have sites like Amazon where the shopping experience is driven by searching for a product that you know you already want, create content, and drive inspiration to purchase. So I think it really boils down to 3 things. Number 1, commerce requires inspiration. If you want someone to buy your product, you need to put it in a context that inspires them, that makes it feel relevant to something that they do every day. And this is not unique to what Polyvore does or what you see online. This is how television advertising works. You put a product into some content, into a story, and that becomes relevant to a consumer. Number 2, inspiration requires content. So you absolutely need consumers to buy their products. And how that framework results in exposing your products to a lot more new customers and increasing the reach of your brand. I think to some extent, many companies in the internet sector are trying to solve this problem. How do you bring together content, community, and commerce to make something magical happen in the middle? And from a content standpoint, there are publishers. So in the US, we have the traditional magazine publishers that have gone online. They're trying to solve this problem by building stores on their websites. You have community-based sites, social networks, trying to build platforms for people to transact. And then you have retailers trying to add community and content to their site. I don't think anybody has really solved it yet, and I certainly don't think Polyvore has really solved it yet. But I think that this is kind of where the market's going, and so we all need to think about this space and try and develop some best practices for how to be successful. And that's really what I'm going to focus on today. I'm not really going to talk too much about Polyvore, more about how brands and retailers can use community to... Hola, buenos días. That's my Spanish right there. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí. Muchas gracias a EEC para invitarme. And this is my first time back in Madrid since 1995. And I hope to be back more often. So I'm from Polyvore, and Polyvore is a new way to discover and shop for things you love. And I think what's really exciting about Polyvore, and what I'm going to really focus on today, is how brands and retailers can use community to build content to inspire